Most people in the neighborhood knew 72-year-old Harold Bennett as the man who never asked anyone for help. A retired firefighter, Harold had spent more than 3 decades responding to emergencies and helping strangers through some of the worst moments of their lives. Even after retirement, he remained active in the community. He volunteered at local events, checked on elderly neighbors during storms, and spent much of his time maintaining his modest home. What many residents didn't know was that Harold suffered from severe arthritis in both knees and hips. Years of physically demanding work had taken a toll on his body. Some days he could walk comfortably. Other days, simply climbing a few steps caused significant pain. To make daily life easier, Harold eventually installed a small wheelchair-style lift beside the short staircase leading to his front porch. He didn't use a wheelchair, but the lift allowed him to safely transport groceries and helped him avoid painful trips up and down the stairs during flare-ups. The installation was professionally completed, met local safety requirements, and remained mostly hidden from the street. For nearly 2 years, nobody complained. That changed when Rebecca Collins became HOA president. Rebecca quickly developed a reputation for aggressive rule enforcement. Residents began receiving violation notices for issues that previous boards had ignored for years. Garden decorations disappeared, outdoor furniture was suddenly scrutinized, homeowners started joking that Rebecca spent more time searching for violations than enjoying her own property. Most residents found her annoying. Harold found her impossible to ignore. One afternoon, he received an official HOA notice demanding the removal of his porch lift. According to the letter, the structure created an unauthorized exterior modification that violated community appearance standards. Harold initially assumed there had been a misunderstanding. He contacted the HOA and explained that the lift existed because of his mobility limitations. He even provided documentation from his physician describing his condition. Rebecca wasn't interested. She informed Harold that community rules applied equally to all homeowners and that exceptions could not be granted simply because a resident found compliance inconvenient. The response shocked him. He appealed the decision. The appeal was denied. A month later, another notice arrived. Then came the fines. As the penalties increased, Harold became increasingly frustrated. The lift wasn't decorative, it wasn't a luxury, it was a tool that allowed him to remain independent in his own home. Without it, routine activities became significantly more difficult. Friends encouraged him to fight the decision, but Harold disliked conflict. Throughout his life, he had solved problems quietly. Public disputes were not his style. Unfortunately, Rebecca continued escalating the situation. During an HOA meeting attended by dozens of residents, Harold explained how the lift helped him manage daily life. Several neighbors spoke in support of him. Many had known Harold for years and respected his contributions to the community. They understood that the lift existed for practical reasons and created no meaningful impact on surrounding properties. Rebecca remained unmoved. She argued that allowing exceptions would weaken the HOA's ability to enforce standards in the future. One resident asked whether accommodating mobility limitations was really comparable to ignoring ordinary violations. Rebecca responded with a comment that immediately changed the mood in the room. If homeowners require special equipment to live comfortably, perhaps they should consider housing better suited to their needs. The room fell silent. Several residents stared at her in disbelief. Even a few board members looked uncomfortable. Harold said nothing, but the expression on his face told everyone exactly how much the comment hurt. Word of the meeting quickly spread throughout the neighborhood. Residents who had never paid much attention to HOA politics suddenly became interested. Many felt Rebecca had crossed a line. What began as a dispute over a porch lift was increasingly viewed as a question of basic decency. Then things became worse. Harold received notice that legal action could be pursued if he failed to remove the lift. The possibility of an expensive legal battle weighed heavily on him. For the first time, he seriously considered giving in. The stress was becoming exhausting. Before he could make a decision, however, several neighbors stepped forward. A retired attorney living nearby offered to review the HOA documents. Another resident began researching previous enforcement actions. What they discovered raised serious concerns. Numerous homeowners throughout the community had received exceptions for various exterior modifications. Decorative pergolas, custom landscaping features, and expanded patios had all been approved despite technically conflicting with HOA guidelines. The rules had never been applied consistently. Harold's lift appeared to be receiving far stricter scrutiny than similar modifications approved in the past. The findings spread quickly among residents. Community frustration grew. The HOA board eventually found itself under increasing pressure to conduct a formal review of the case. A special meeting was scheduled. On the evening of the meeting, the clubhouse was packed. Residents filled nearly every available seat. Some stood along the walls because there wasn't enough room. One by one, homeowners addressed the board. Several spoke about fairness. Others discussed accessibility and independence. A few shared personal stories about aging parents and family members who relied on accommodations to remain in their homes. Then the board presented its findings. The review confirmed that numerous comparable modifications had been approved over the years. Enforcement actions against Harold appeared inconsistent with previous HOA decisions. In some cases, exceptions had been granted for projects that were far more visible than the porch lift. The evidence was difficult to dispute. Rebecca attempted to defend her actions by claiming she was protecting property values and maintaining community standards. This time, very few people agreed. The crowd's frustration was obvious. Several board members openly questioned why a retired firefighter dealing with mobility limitations had become the target of such aggressive enforcement. For the first time since the conflict began, Rebecca appeared isolated. Within weeks, she resigned as HOA president. The HOA canceled every fine issued against Harold and formally approved the porch lift. The board also adopted new guidelines requiring accommodation requests to receive special consideration before enforcement actions could proceed. For Harold, however, the most meaningful moment came several months later during the community's annual summer picnic. Families gathered in a local park beneath large shade trees. Children played games while neighbors shared food and conversation. Harold arrived expecting an ordinary afternoon. Instead, he found dozens of residents eager to speak with him. Many thanked him for standing his ground. Others admitted they had never fully understood the challenges faced by people with mobility limitations until the controversy brought attention to the issue. Several residents told him that the neighborhood had become stronger because of what happened. As the afternoon continued, Harold sat comfortably among friends and neighbors, listening to conversations and laughter. For the first time in a long while, the dispute felt completely behind him. The lift remained exactly where it belonged. Nobody complained anymore. Looking around the park, Harold realized something important. A community isn't defined by perfectly uniform homes. It's defined by how people treat one another when life becomes difficult. And on that warm summer afternoon, surrounded by people who had chosen compassion over control, Harold finally felt something he hadn't in months: welcome in his own neighborhood again.